So a few days ago, I finished reading ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is a hugely popular book, and this actual copy I got from a local bookstore on a Black Friday sale, so it really pushed me to read it. I have not read romantasy before, so I wanted to see, but I guess like I've heard about this series and the genre. I know people on YouTube have like it's very split, and I have friends in my life that really like this series, so I wanted to see what it's all about. And sadly, I don't have much good to say about at least this first book. I really disliked it. I will obviously dive deeper into it. I basically, the structure of this video would be I will talk about four main items that I disliked about the book, and I'll rank them. I'll talk first about the one that bothered me the least, and then at the end, the thing that bothered me the most about the book. So yeah, let's jump into it. Oh, and before we begin, this will be spoilers. I mean, I feel like at this point, this book's been out for so many years. I'm probably the last person to ever read it, just because I feel like everyone has read it. If I go on my Goodreads, so many people that I know have read it. So yeah, I just feel that it's much easier to talk about these specific things in a spoiler kind of way. Otherwise, it won't nail the point home that I'm trying to make about my issues. So the first issue I have with the book, and I guess the one that bothers me the least really, but it bears mentioning, is I guess the writing in general. Then the descriptions of especially Tamlin, I just did not enjoy one bit. I felt like it was kind of corny, and there's just so much description of his body and how buff he is. And every time we had to talk about what he was wearing, Sarah J. Maas had to make it clear that his muscles were protruding off his chest or off his legs or something. I just kind of chuckled every time I heard one of her descriptions of Tamlin. Also, a lot of furry kind of stuff, a lot of growling and making like animalistic noises, which I guess makes sense because the fairies here, they can shapeshift and turn into animals, and they all, I guess, have their own signature animals that they can turn into, and Tamlin can turn into a wolf. So yeah, but I don't know. It was still pretty funny. There's like one of the only intimate scenes in the book was made me laugh because she like the description says something along the lines of she spread her legs and she was naked, and Tamlin just like growled, and I just in my head I'm just picturing this guy almost turning into like a wolf while they're about to have, like, right before they're about to have sex, and maybe howling or something. I don't know. I didn't, it didn't sell me into this, like, the romance of it in the moment or the heat of the moment. I just kind of didn't take it seriously. So the second thing that I had an issue with was overall, I had a lot of problems with kind of like lore and plot inconsistencies or things that I wish would have been explained further. Like the blight is this big element of the story. The blight is like this curse that is hit the land of the fairies, and we find out later on what the blight is. But early on, I just didn't feel seriously the threat of the blight because all I could really understand was that they were wearing masks and they couldn't take them off. Like Tamlin was still able to do very powerful things, and all the fairies have like supernatural abilities and vision and movement and stuff. But so it just felt like, oh yeah, they all have powers, but they're forced to wear masks in this court. Later on, it's explained what's going on, and I guess it kind of makes more sense. But early on, I just didn't really buy into the blight. I wish that the explanation of the beasts, of the different kind of like creatures and like fairies, was like more of a part of the story. I was kind of confused about what makes a fairy, what makes a high fairy, and what makes a high lord. What is the difference between them? But then there's other creatures like the bog, the ator, and so on. And it just, are they also fairies? There's like a lot of things that confuse me about that. Are they just their own mythical creatures? So I wish that lore of the world would have been just there would have been more description for these things and how they're separated more clearly. Another thing which I don't know if this is just a mistake, like just period, but Farah makes allusion to hell and going to hell. She says go to hell to one of the characters, and from what I understand, there's no heaven or hell in this world, but it's instead a cauldron that created this world that the peoples believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but this seems like a gross like editing mistake, right? If she's talking about going to hell, but as far as we know, they haven't talked about God, heaven, and hell. Like, it just seems like an inconsistency with the beliefs and the religion of the world. Also, I did not buy into this division between humans and fairies that much because fairies seem so much stronger than humans. So in my mind, like later on, there's this talk about the armies building. Amarantha wants to build up armies of fairies to invade the human world. And in my head, I'm like, a one fairy could probably take out a whole village on their own, given the power, like how power, like the difference in power levels that we've seen. Like, yeah, sure, they can be killed by one thing in the world, but guess what? Humans can be killed by thousands of millions of things. So I don't know. I didn't understand why, or there had to be more, I guess, explanation or lore about maybe the humans and how strong they were, to make it seem like, oh yeah, the fairies do need to amass like large armies to invade the human world. So the third thing I had a lot of like serious problems with in this book is just Feyre as a whole, as a character, and like her interactions with other people. There's just so many things that don't make sense to me when I really thought about them. Like, for example, she cares so much about her family, despite her family not really ever caring much for her. We up until the end, we until the end is when we see like her sisters show some kind of love and appreciation for her. Before that, for the first like three-fourths of the book, three-quarters of the book, I just feel like there's no reason for her to want to like go back and save her family. Her family was terrible to her. And then to add on to that, she keeps talking about this dream to have her dad and her live alone, and for her to paint. Why do you want to be with your dad? Her dad is basically not even a character in this story. He maybe has like a 3-4 lines in the whole book. I don't really get any kind of like, besides the mistakes and the terrible dumb things he's done that have ruined his family, I don't get any humanizing moments about this man. So I cannot understand why Farah would want to spend the rest of her life taking care of him, just them two and not with her sisters. But yeah, just Farah as a whole is just, I found her very annoying, very obnoxious. There's a lot of times in the book where she is told things that to me were obvious and should have, that like in other stories, the main character would have already known this or would have had some like thought process that would have been explained about it. But in this story, it's like, oh, wait, this is a reveal and she didn't know this. For example, one is Tamlin being the Lord. To me, that seemed obvious from the very beginning. This man has a huge estate. People listen to him. He's the High Lord of the court. But it's played off as a reveal, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And it's like, why? This is so obvious. And then the biggest, most egregious one to me, the thing that like, this was ridiculous. The riddle the riddle that they give her, where she just has to give the answer and it will break the curse. As soon as they said the riddle, it's just so obvious, and we get so many pages of her like being like, I'm thinking about it and I don't know what the answer is. Like, come on. The whole story so far has been about love. What else would it be? But then at the same time, she is not smart enough to figure these two very obvious things out, but she is smart enough to figure out that Tamlin has a literal heart of stone in the third trial of the book. That just makes no sense. Like, you need to build up a character, in my opinion, to be quick and think about these things and realize these things. You haven't, like, this character has not been built up like that. She's been built up to be slow to pick up on things. So it just makes no sense that she's able to just quickly realize, oh yeah, based on like one hint from the like days or months ago for her, that they have hearts of stone. And just in general, also, there's many times where she doesn't listen to advice from like Lucian and Tamlin and Alice, and just puts herself in these dangerous situations. It just feels like she doesn't understand the true stakes in the story, and also the difference in like power level between her and these high lords and fairies. Like, they're made out to be these really strong beings, and she doesn't seem to be afraid of them like hurting her or doing anything to her, and she just jumps in head first without any thought or care about it, without any plan most of the time. Also, with the romance between her and Tamlin, she the whole time from the beginning, Tamlin, at least from her understanding of this curse, right? She is supposed to think that treaty says that if a man kills a fairy, the fairies can in return kill this man, an eye for an eye, right? But Tamlin chooses not to do that and chooses to take her, not to prison to be like in a dungeon, but to be in his fabulous estate, be treated like a queen, and yet she is always rude to him the whole time. Oh, and it would make sense if she just blanketed hated all fairies and didn't want to be touched and didn't want to do have anything to do with fairies, but that's not how it's played out, because she has a fine relationship with Lucian, who, by the way, Lucian, she overhears him saying, oh, we should have just killed her instead of doing this, you shouldn't have done this early on. But yet she hears this and she still chooses to befriend Lucian more early on, rather than Tamlin, who's being nice to her and trying to be understanding, and she keeps prodding and pushing and being rude to him. Now let's get to the fourth and the thing that like bothered me the most about this story. So before I say it, I gotta say the first half of the book, I didn't have like, it was not good in my opinion, but at least the biggest issue I had for the first half was I really wasn't buying into the romance between Tamlin and Feyre. I wasn't really feeling that love that Tamlin had for her, and also I actually just remembered a moment that kind of further reveals to me why also like there's not many endearing moments between them, but this moment specifically, I laughed out loud. So there's a scene where Feyre reveals to Tamlin that she cannot read or write, and he talks about having a library where she can learn to read and write. And it in my head, I was like, okay, okay, this will be like an endearing romantic moment where Tamlin will teach her how to read and write, and it will just be a warm like character moment between them where their love grows. So they head to the library, they go in, and that's not what happens. Instead, he just showed her to the library, and she's just left on her own to keep trying to learn how to read and write better. I laughed out loud. I feel like it was almost played for comedy. It was, I don't know, like, just how is she supposed to learn truly how to read and write better if she barely knows how to? It just didn't make sense in my head. But yeah, I mean, that's one example of me not like a moment where I thought the romance would be like, I would start buying more into the romance, but I wasn't really for the first half. I just was not buying into it, and and maybe I could see how some people could buy into it, and if you do, I think the book would be good. But then the second half, it just truly, the reveal, the twist, that basically the whole curse is kind of like a plot convenient device to explain away their whole romance and their whole love story. I just absolutely hated it. It just felt too convenient that curse was literally that they needed to find a woman that hated fairies, that killed one of your court's fairies, and then she had to say "I love you" to Tamlin to break the curse. It just, I don't know. It just feels in my head when I read this, um, like and I hate doing this. I don't want to be taken out of the book while I'm reading, but in my head I was like, just thinking about Sarah J. Maas writing the first half and then being like, this doesn't make sense how these two characters would actually be in love given what I've written so far. So how can I make it so that there's more reason why their romance is not real and not really happening in the first place? And then she thought about this, like making the curse all about it. Like, it just feels that way to me, like a editor's note, or her rereading the first part of the book. It really bothered me. It really soured me on everything. Before this, I was like, okay, this is kind of like an unbelievable romance, but if you buy into it, you'll enjoy this book. But after this, I just could not. Like, this twist was just really bad in my opinion, and it really bothered me. And before I end this video, I want to talk about, because I released a TikTok with my initial impressions of the book, and I got a lot of comments saying that you have to wait till the second part, till the second book, and it will get better, and all these issues will like go away, and it will all make sense. I have a fundamental issue with that, because even if that's true, which I don't think it will be, it will probably piss me off if she tries to explain why this plot twist was this bad. Like, it just feels like doing it yet again, explaining away problems with the characters and the story and the romance by adding a twist that would explain it away. So I wouldn't really like that, particularly in a story. But even if I do like it, like, let's say when this book originally came out, the first book, if I had read it back then, why would I ever wanted to read the second one? If I didn't know there was a second book, the second book had to come out, we didn't know that the second book would fix all these problems. I just have a fundamental issue with this thought process of like, oh, the second book fixes the problems of the first one. If I didn't like the first one, I just have no incentive to keep reading after. Each book, to me, has to be to some degree self-contained. That doesn't mean that the story has to have a beginning and end, but it does mean that each book can stand on its own to some degree, right? So I just have a fundamental issue with this thought process, with this idea of like the sequel saving the first book. I mean, and that's not to say I won't keep reading. I might give it a shot. I need to take a little break after this one because it was a lot for me reading. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Akatar. Let me know what you guys think about, I guess, the plot twist, and also the romance between Tamlin and Feyre in the book, and also like Rysand or Rhysand, Lucian, and the characters in the story. And I guess, do you guys enjoy like the lore of this world and this setup of the fairies and the humans being split across like separate worlds, essentially divided by a wall? Yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.